Hello, and welcome to what should hopefully be a good long-running series in which I go about seeing the effects of maintaining discipline on the matter of wankery or the lack thereof. Yeah, so let's get on with starting the voice pitch analyzer recording to collect some statistics. And the recording has begun, and now let's get on with reading the beloved book. The Penguin Sherlock Holmes Collection, A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, dubbed The Literary Super Sleuth by the Daily Express. Chapter 1, page 3, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. In the year 1878, I took my degree of Doctor of Medicine of the University of London and proceeded to Netley to go through the course prescribed for surgeons in the army. Having completed my studies there, I was duly attached to the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers as assistant surgeon. The regiment was stationed in India at the time, and before I could join it, the Second Afghan War had broken out. On landing at Bombay, I learned that my corps had advanced through the passes and was already deep in the enemy's country. I followed, however, with many other officers who were in the same situation as myself, and succeeded in reaching Kandahar in safety, where I found my regiment and at once entered upon my new duties. The campaign brought honors and promotion to many, but for me it had nothing but misfortune and disaster. I was removed from my brigade and attached to the Berkshires, with whom I served at the fatal battle of Maiwand. There I was struck on the shoulder by a Jezail bullet, which shattered the bone and grazed the subclavian artery. I should have fallen into the hands of the murderous Casey, had it not been for the devotion and courage shown by Murray, my orderly, who threw me across a pack horse and succeeded in bringing me safely to the British lines. Worn with pain and weak from prolonged hardships which I had undergone, I was removed with a great train of wounded sufferers to the base hospital at Peshawar. Here I rallied and had already improved so far as to be able to walk about the wards and even to bask a little upon the veranda, when I was struck down by enteric fever, that curse of our Indian possessions. For months my life was despaired of, and when at last I came to myself and became convalescent, I was so weak and emaciated that the medical board determined that not a day should be lost in sending me back to England. I was dispatched accordingly in the troop ship Orontes, and landed a month later on the Portsmouth jetty, with my health irrevocably ruined, but with permission from a paternal government to spend the next 9 months in attempting to improve it. Fireworks are going off right now. Celebration, celebration, a book is being read. Celebration, celebration. What's better to do instead? I had neither kith nor kin in England, and was therefore as free as air, or as free as an income of 11 shillings and 6 pence a day will permit a man to be. Under such circumstances, I was naturally... There was no word was there. Under such circumstances, I naturally gravitated to London, that great cesspool into which all the loungers and idlers of the empire are irresistibly drained. There I stayed for some time at a private hotel in the Strand, leading a comfortless, meaningless existence, and spending such money as I had considerably more freely than I ought. So alarming did the state of my finances become that I soon realized that I must either leave the metropolis and rusticate somewhere in the country, or that I must take... So alarming did the state of my finances become that I soon realized that I must either leave the metropolis and rusticate somewhere in the country, or that I must make a complete alteration in my style of living. Choosing the latter alternative, I began by making up my mind to leave the hotel and to take up my quarters in some less pretentious and less expensive domicile. On the very day that I had come to this conclusion, I was standing at the Satyrian bar when someone tapped me on the shoulder, and turning round, I recognized young Stamford, who had been a dresser under me at Bart's. The sight of a friendly face, in that great wilderness of London, is a pleasant thing indeed to a lonely man. In old days, Stamford had never been a particular crony of mine, but now I hailed him with enthusiasm as In old days, Stamford had never been a particular crony of mine, but now I hailed him with enthusiasm, and he, in turn, appeared to be delighted to see me. In the exuberance of my joy, I asked him to lunch with me at the Holborn, and we started off together in a hansom. "Whatever have you been doing with yourself, Watson?" he asked, in undisguised wonder, as we rattled through the crowded London streets. "You are as thin as a lathe, and as brown as a nut." I gave him a short sketch of my adventures, and had hardly concluded it by the time we reached our destination. "Poor devil," he said, commiseratingly, after he had listened to my misfortunes. "What are you up to now?" "Looking for lodgings," I answered, trying to solve the problem as to whether it is possible to get comfortable rooms at a reasonable price. "That's a strange thing," remarked my companion. "You are the second man today that has used that expression to me." "And who was the first?" I asked. "A fellow who is working at the chemical laboratory up at the hospital. He was bemoaning himself this morning because he could not get someone to go halves with him." And so brings us to the end of our 3-page epic. Let's conclude the voice pitch analyzer recording and see what our results are. So, the range is quite wide indeed. Let's see other statistics such as pitch over time, the graph. Wow, well, gosh golly gee willikers. Right off the rip, we have quite feminine spikes, and in the mid we have quite feminine spikes. But in early, mid, in between, low, and near the end, decently low. Now let's see details. General average 123 hertz, minimum 70 hertz, maximum 212 hertz. Minimum average 94 hertz. Maximum average 155 hertz. All right. So now let's compare these details with the previous details. Especially important, the minimum and maximum. Previous details on 2024, 05, 09. Details. Minimum, we're now 7 hertz higher on the minimum, and wow, what about maybe 20 higher on the maximum? 196 compared to 212. Goodness. All right, so with all this in mind, let's see where that brings us. So we were going nicely down over the course of starting, and then 1 week had a nice decrease, and now I suppose with it gradually becoming a habit, subconsciously I must be reining range in, because I didn't go too high. I didn't exceed the overall pitch on the start, which is good news. It should be noted that I had a good night's sleep today. Or I suppose, yeah, I woke up from a good night's sleep today. So that would undoubtedly play a good role in my voice. The weather has been magnificent this past week, and especially today. Very bright, sunny, and warm with a decent breeze. So that must surely play a role. A few days prior, I did get mildly buzzed from a few beers, so that might play a role. I had a good meal or two today, so that might play a role. There's many factors to consider. Let's finish and wrap up by reminding myself to stay disciplined from this day forward to the next week and onwards. It's one thing to have a week of discipline and then a week of no discipline, and then to just ping pong back between both states. It'll be very interesting and much more productive if I can keep a disciplined streak of weeks going. That'll be where the important information comes from, and in future I'll leave all the results and my ongoings to the end so that we can play the guessing game. Alright, so that about does it. Bye-bye for now.